Karaoke is a platform for young aspiring singers to shine and express their musical abilities. Tune in to CBC TV 8 on Mondays at 5:30 p.m. and repeat it on Saturdays at 2 p.m. and enjoy the performances of these talented young singers.
For the past 19 years, QFM has been sharing with you, learning from you, and together building a community for all mature audiences. That's why we say Q is good for you. To our Q family, we say thank you for staying connected to Q 100.7 FM.
Good morning, I'm Wendy Burke, and this is the CBC Morning Report for Monday, January 8th. In our top story, the National Substance Abuse Foundation has begun to celebrate Drug Awareness Month. Yesterday, the foundation held a church service to kick off the celebrations. Speaking at the service, Director of Clinical Services at Verdun and Marina House, Alison Gotip, said the issue of drugs needs to be addressed in all organizations and communities.
The use, misuse, and abuse of mood-altering substances impacts the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of persons and their loved ones. Therefore, it is great at this time to acknowledge that it's not a they problem, but a we problem that needs to be tackled on all levels, within all parishes, within all religious communities, government entities, and non-governmental organizations.
Also speaking at the service was one of the graduates from Verdun House, Anderson A. He shared a message to the congregation about how drug addicts should be treated.
Drug addicts are not bad people, are just some junkie and losers who deserve to die. They are actually good people who have families that love them, but just ended up being a victim to the disease of addiction. And they can't help it. So if you can't help them, don't hurt them. But instead of judging them, pray for them.
Coming up on the CBC Morning Report, Israeli ministers boycott yesterday's cabinet meeting as divisions grow over the war with Hamas.
Are you a youth group, 4-H club, school, Cub Scout, or Brownie Pack, or any organization or club with children ages 4 to 11 years? If yes is the answer, then we at Fun School, we're looking for you. Let's have fun singing, dancing, listening to amazing stories, doing craft, and so much more. I'm such a kid at heart. But to be part of this fun and exciting new season of Fun School, just simply send an email to Alicia Alves Grant at aa.grant@cbc.bb for further details. Fun School is back, and we're looking for you.
While you go about your business, we go about our business, and that is gathering the news. Stay up to date at
U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says Palestinian civilians must be able to return home, and he has rejected statements by Israeli officials calling for the mass displacement of Gaza residents. Speaking at a media conference in Doha on Sunday alongside the Qatari Prime Minister, Blinken said the United Nations can play a crucial role in allowing displaced civilians in Gaza to return home as Israel moves to a lower intensity phase of its military campaign.
Secretary Blinken comes back to the region with the clouds of what could be an expanded confrontation hanging over the region, and this explains exactly why he said this is a moment of profound tension and that the United States of America, along with its allies in the region and key players are determined to ensure that the tension does not spread. Now, when you look at the optics of the press conference, the Secretary Blinken understands this time that this is going to be an extremely delicate moment for the United States of America, blasted by its allies in the region, by hundreds of millions of Muslims and Arabs. What they say is a failure of the American administration to step in and put pressure on the Israeli government to end the relentless bombardment of the civilians in Gaza. He says that he's working along with allies such as Qatar to ensure that the Israeli captives are released, and that they are determined to ensure that this does not degenerate into a full-blown military confrontation.
Let's get more on the U.S. perspective on this with Al Jazeera's Patty Culhane. You're in Washington, D.C., Patty. What is the top priority for Blinken during this regional trip?
He has so many priorities. I don't know if even he could tell you what the top priority is. Obviously, it's trying to work out some sort of deal to get the hostages out. That's been one of his top priorities. But a lot of things have happened since this started, including what's happening in the Red Sea. The Houthi attacks on commercial ships. We recently saw just last week the U.S. and some of its allies come out and say, this is your last warning, stop firing at commercial ships. So he's going to be gauging the reaction if, in fact, the U.S. is planning on some sort of military action in Yemen. He's going to try to guess out what the reaction from these different countries would be. He's also probably asking for a little bit of help. Since they announced the Operation Prosperity or Guardian, the U.S. has been really trying to get more allies on board, and he highlighted in that press conference more than 20 countries are on board. What he didn't highlight is a whole lot of those countries are sending 1 or 2 people to the headquarters, not a whole lot of warships going to the area to try and deter those cruise missile and drone attacks on commercial vessels. So doing that. Obviously, one of the big concerns is what happens after the war is over. He's going to be feeling out these countries to see if they feel like there's been talk of a multinational force going in, that a lot of countries have said absolutely not to. He's going to want to talk about what sort of financial support the people of Palestine in Gaza may be able to get. Obviously, he's also going to be defending the Israelis. That has been his main role here. He was asked, he was given a direct chance to actually say, yes, if Israel just continues to ignore what we are asking them to do, that there could be consequences. He didn't do that. All he said is what we've heard from them before is that every country that we give weapons to, that the U.S. gives weapons to, has to follow international law. And he never points out that to most experts, Israel is not following international law. And he also didn't highlight the fact that even now, these 3 months in, the U.S. is still not studying or even looking into whether Israel is meeting those qualifications. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think, the tone when he gets to Israel and see if perhaps that changes.
3 Israeli government ministers refused to take part in Sunday's weekly cabinet meeting as divisions continue to grow over the war with Hamas.
This coming after Israeli media reported the war cabinet meeting on Thursday descended into chaos and into yelling. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has urged for unity, saying that they must put everything aside to focus on winning the war. Sarah Khairat is monitoring all this in Tel Aviv. Sarah, good to talk to you. What's going on here? The disagreements and the fault lines that we're looking at.
The disagreements have been showing a lot more, certainly, since when this war on Gaza started. It was showing a sense of unity. They were very aware of differences, which we've been seeing, well, since the coalition government came into power a little over a year ago now. And then this Sunday meeting, 3 people from the same National Unity Party decided not to attend, including 2 war cabinet members. Those are Benny Gantz as well as Gadi Eisenhock. Now, they seems didn't attend because of the infighting that happened just a few days ago, as you mentioned there, when a security cabinet meeting was supposed to be held to discuss the so-called day after plan as to what what happens in Gaza once the war ends. Now, these divisions are really testament to problems that existed in this far-right government already, but also where you have, for example, these ministers, that especially the more hardline ministers, were attacking the army chief. Benny Gantz came to his rescue, if you like, and was defending him and defending the military. And then, as a result, this fallout seems to have continued. But also, in the last few hours, we've had a confirmation, it seems, that the former Supreme Court chief has been appointed to represent or to be part of the panel of judges in The Hague in terms of this South Africa case that's been brought against Israel, accusing it of genocide in Gaza. And there has been a split in some of those that are not happy, some of the people in the government that are not happy about this. This is someone that he's well known to be against Benjamin Netanyahu's policies, and he was also against the judicial overhaul that was supposed to take place before this war happened. And he's being seen as someone who's internationally respected, and also being someone who's not a close ally to Netanyahu, as someone that could represent the country, showing that he won't be biased. But for some of those ministers that are in the government, they aren't happy about this because they see this as someone who's very liberal and very much against their the way they look at things.
Time now to preview what's coming up on Morning Barbados. This morning, we're going to be having some visitors in, and they are in Barbados to enjoy our country. But they're also going to tell us what they get up to when they're back at home. Yes, we're going to be having a group of female attorneys. Yes, they belong to something called Decarceration Collective, a 100% female-led firm. We're going to have two of the members here with us telling us all about work in trying to free individuals from incarceration. We'll also get a chance to talk to them if you need to about certain matters. Also this morning coming up, we will be speaking with Barvin. You know, vendors have been on the lips of everybody, especially the coconut vendors. But outside of that, what has the organization been up to? How big is entrepreneurship growing across the island? They'll be along to tell you. Also in this morning, we'll be talking to the Barbados Film and Television Association. We'll be reviewing their 2023 and looking toward 2024 with Mr. Jamal Slocum. Also coming up on Morning Barbados, we will be looking at that reshuffle which happened over the weekend. Dr. George Bell, political scientist, will be in with us to take a look at some of those changes. So all that and more coming up on Morning Barbados. More news, sports, and weather after the break.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated to another country? Well, we at Mornin Barbados would love to have you or them on our Bajan Affair segment. Share your amazing stories, experiences, and how you have adapted to a new culture. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.vb. And together we will travel the world.
Oh, hi. My name is Stacia Whitaker, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and a member of the Heart and Stroll Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition. My motto is
The Barbados Consumer Empowerment Network, BSAN, is concerned about commercial banks failing to comply with the recent directive issued by the central bank. Last week, the Central Bank of Barbados instructed banks that no fees should be imposed for electronic transactions through the Automated Clearinghouse, or ACH, and that any fees presently charged for electronic transactions through the ACH should be immediately discontinued. Executive Director of BSAN, Maureen Holder, in a statement, however, notes that days later, at least one bank was still charging customers.
BSEN wants further public discourse and disclosure so as to ensure even greater consumer protection for consumers using online banking services. Now, there's reason to believe and evidence to support that as of Saturday, 6th of January 2024, that a commercial bank in Barbados that is already involved in the practice of charging fees for local online banking services continues to do so. And this bank does so despite the recent edict from the Central Bank of Barbados to desist from such practices.
In addition to calling for the central bank to intensify its supervision and surveillance, BSEN suggests non-compliant banks should face penalties.
We at BSEN believe that failing to comply with the central bank's directive should invoke penalties, or in lieu of such, the Central Bank of Barbados could consider the use of temporary suspension measures for specific online banking services. BSEN also believes that such action could serve as a strong incentive for prompt compliance from commercial banks.
The Barbados Workers Union has welcomed news of plans to introduce legislation to establish minimum standards for tourism and hospitality workers. The announcement was made by Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley during her live address to the nation over the weekend. This follows months of contention between the Barbados Workers Union and the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association. Reacting to the news, General Secretary of the BWU, Tony Moore, has hailed it as a victory, as she suggests it is the culmination of the union's Recipe for Respect campaign.
This journey was not without its challenges. We faced skepticism and criticism, with some voices in the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association dismissing our efforts as a smear campaign. However, we stood undeterred, fueled by the righteousness of our cause. Today, with the affirming words of the Prime Minister of Barbados, we have a clear vindication. Her comments are not just a nod to our campaign, but a resounding acknowledgement that our demands were just and our fight noble.
Ms. Moore has vowed the union will continue to advocate for workers.
Let it be known that the Barbados Workers Union will accept nothing less than total compliance from the BHTA. While we are disappointed by the turns our campaign had to take, we do not regret our actions. Our path, though strewn with obstacles, was necessary. It was a path towards fairness, dignity, and respect for every worker in the hotel and tourism sector. As we look forward to the enactment of this groundbreaking legislation, we call upon our members and every hotel worker to remain vigilant. Report any deviation you see. The Barbados Workers Union will ensure that promises made are promises kept.
Chair of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Tricia Tannis, says if all things remain the same as it relates to promised reductions in port costs, there should be a reduction in prices for consumers this year. Her remarks come on the heels of Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley's announcing that container-related port charges will be reduced by a further 7.5%, and this comes after a 10% reduction was implemented just last year. Prime Minister also said she's not satisfied that the reductions are being passed on to consumers. In responding to the news, Ms. Tannis acknowledged that reductions should come if all things remain the same. She added, however, that a number of factors go into the final cost of products.
As it relates to the announced reductions in some port charges or some further reductions in port charges, yes, if all things remain as they currently are, all things being equal, there should be a reduction in prices of the affected items if those port reductions and reductions in port charges are passed to the consumer. However, who will be tracking the movements in all factors that contribute to a given price? Who will track the movement in fuel and electricity costs, for instance, salaries, transportation costs, and other overheads that are impacted by inflation? Or indeed the most obvious, shipping costs and the original invoice prices of the imported commodities.
Ms. Tannis says unless the relevant monitoring bodies have full view of all factors influencing prices, it will be difficult to identify who has passed on or not passed on specific reductions.
Let's hope that all things do remain equal and that the stated reductions translate into an ease for consumers. However, we're already seeing some issues in terms of shipping costs. We do know that those will remain elevated or even escalate depending on what happens with the global supply chain challenges that we're seeing in the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal and other commodity prices that are moving as well. The price of oil, the fluctuations thereof that have an immediate impact on most costs, because that's a key input and a trigger and a multiplier across most costs of the business and in the economy. So things are not likely to remain equal, but let's hope that as many things remain as they are as possible so that we can see these reductions translate into an ease for consumers.
The leadership of the Barbados Cadet Corps has been challenged to place their trust in God as they seek to move the organization to the next level. That was the advice given during the organization's 120th anniversary service held at the Garfield Sobers Gymnasium yesterday. CBC's Rianne Phillips reports.
President of Barbados, the Most Honorable Dame Sandra Mason, senior officers and past and present cadets, along with relatives, were among the attendees at the 120th anniversary service of the Barbados Cadet Corps. Captain Reverend Dr. Alicia Aline, in her sermon, reminded those at the helm to remember God as they chart a course for the future of the Corps.
As a leader, the decisions you make may not make sense to the followers, but do it for the benefit of all. So when victory and a season of rejoicing comes, we all rejoice together. To the leaders of the Barbados Cadet Corps, it's time to move to the next level, trusting in God. He knows the plan for 2024 and beyond, but you have to journey with Him. You may have to make some bold decisions and wait, but in all you do, focus on Proverbs 3, verse 5 to 7. Trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Captain Aline also has some words of advice for the youth who serve at different ranks in the organization.
Young people, see yourself as God sees you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. Don't let people's words speak louder than God's words. Always remember, you had a purpose before anyone had an opinion. Young people, for the next level, you need to be connected to God. He reinforces who you are.
And in his remarks, Commander David Dowridge highlighted the rich history of the Corps and its contribution to Barbados and the region.
I am boasting that I am a product of the Barbados Cadet Corps. I am boasting that this organization is the oldest of its type in Barbados. I am boasting that it's the oldest of its type in the Caribbean. I am boasting that Barbados brand is the brand that the entire Caribbean Cadet Association look to for guidance and for leadership. I am boasting that we have trained most of the leaders and cadets throughout the Caribbean.
The Barbados Cadet Corps started in 1904 as a male organization, but in 1978 it accepted its first female recruits. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
In the region, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has announced that major crimes fell 13% in the first 11 months of 2023, with decreases seen in categories like robberies, burglaries, and drug offences compared to the same period in 2022. However, the troubling problem of violent crime persists, with a record-tying 75 homicides recorded in 2023. HTS reports.
Crime in St. Lucia decreased 13% in the first 11 months of 2023 compared to the same period in 2022, according to a report released by the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, RSLPF, on Thursday. The report analyzed crime data from January 1st to November 30th, 2023, and found 15,357 crimes were reported island-wide. Police cleared 8,155 cases for an overall detection rate of 54%.
When we look at the crimes for the year thus far, we see that for the period January to November, we recorded a total of 15,357 cases of crime, revealing a decrease in crime when compared to last year, 2022, which accounted for 17,719 cases. The detection rates, we saw that 15,195 cases were accepted by the police, out of which 8,155 cases were detected, revealing a detection rate of 54% for 2023. We look at the major crime categories. We see for crimes against person, the year 2023 recorded the second highest, 2,947 cases. Sexual offenses with 166 cases. Firearm offenses decreased with 303 cases. Crimes against property recorded the majority of cases, with a total of 3,307 cases for 2023. And when you look at the drug offenses, which decreased with 167 cases.
Homicides increased slightly to 75 cases, up 4% from 2022. Within that, murders were up 6% to 70 cases. Over a third of murders, 40%, occurred in the Southern Division. Firearm offenses dropped 18% to 303 cases. Police seized 109 illegal firearms, mostly pistols and revolvers. Robberies fell 40% to 223 cases detected. Burglaries were nearly flat at 562 cases.
We had 70 murders, 303 firearm offenses, 223 robberies. The majority was recorded burglaries, 562, narcotic offenses, 167 cases. We had 75 stealing motor vehicle cases, 192 stealing from person offenses, and 166 sexual offenses. We go into the homicides. We see that during the year 2022, there were 75 homicides, revealing an increase of 4% when compared to last year, 2022, where 72 homicides were recorded. And we can see that it was mirrored in 2021, which also accounted for 75 cases. The homicide and murder comparison, we see for 2023, out of the 75 homicides, there were 70 murders, 4 police shootings, and 1 case which was unclassified.
Guyana's main opposition party has voiced disappointment with the government's incremental strategy towards implementing free university education, accusing the Irfan Ali administration of politicizing the University of Guyana. Additionally, the party has outlined various initiatives it plans to undertake should it be returned to office. We have a report from HGP TV.
Last week, President Dr. Irfan Ali announced a step-by-step approach toward free university education, with the first step dealing with students currently burdened by loans. However, opposition leader Aubrey Norton at a press conference on Thursday expressed dismay over the government's reluctance to immediately implement free university education for Guyanese citizens. In fact, Norton accused the government of viewing the University of Guyana as a political pawn rather than a national priority.
This is the only explanation for the president's anti-climatic announcement that the University of Guyana would, I quote, step by step be free by 2025, a likely election year when it should be free and well-funded right now.
The leader highlighted Guyana's long-standing commitment to providing free education at the university level even before the era of oil wealth. He expressed bewilderment at the administration's failure to prioritize immediate realization of free university education, citing the constitutional right of Guyanese citizens to access higher education without financial barriers. Of particular concern to Norton was the president's proposal to mandate student employment during their studies as a prerequisite for tuition removal.
We believe in liberating students from the burden of student debt and will write off all loans for students who work in Guyana after graduation. Removing the burden of such debt will help to stimulate our economy as well as encourage Guyanese to pursue further studies at the university.
According to Norton, should this be imposed on students by the Ali-led regime, the APNU-AFC would swiftly reverse any imposition of mandatory work for students.
In sports, more than 50 events are on the calendar of the Barbados Motoring Federation for this season. Drivers are busy preparing for the season, which is scheduled to open in March. Former champion driver Roger Ninja Hill and his works crew are preparing his Skoda Fabia R5 for the rigors of the year's action. He told CBC Sports about what is getting their attention.
We looked at the layout of the events and so on. Everything looks quite nice in comparison to last year. All the dates have been set, so we're pretty much looking forward to starting. I think the first event is at the end of March. So we will be doing that, and then the warm-up rally, then King of the Hill, and then Rally Barbados. So looks exciting.
Time now to find out what the weather will be like. The barometric pressure stands at 1013.1 millibars. The temperature is 24.9 degrees Celsius. The humidity is at 88%, and the winds are from the east at 32 kilometers per hour. It's presently cloudy with some slight haze. The seas are moderate and open water with swells ranging from 1.5 to 2.5 meters and increasing. Small craft operators and sea bathers should exercise caution. The first high tide was at 1:52 a.m. and the second will be at 12:59 p.m. The first low tide will be at 6:47 a.m. and the second at 8 p.m. In Barbados today, it will be a mix of sunshine and clouds with the occasional brief scattered light to moderate showers. Tonight will be a mix of clear skies and clouds with the occasional brief scattered light to moderate showers. That's today's morning report. Our next newscast is Newsday at 12 p.m. on TV8, followed by The World at 1 via our radio network of stations. Time now for Morning Barbados, and it's going to be part 1 of the Decarceration Collective.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, 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 morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, morning Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, morning Barbados. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
You've just seen the work of the Decarceration Collective. Yes, that's what they do. This is a group of women, 100% female power. Yes, they are attorneys, legal services that they're providing in the USA for America's carceral cycle. And we have the ladies, at least 2 of the 4 with us this morning in Barbados. We want to welcome them to the island, Maya Angel Cody and Jackie Phelps. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, we're always hearing about the black man in the system, the black woman in the system. and being incarcerated, being unable to pay for legal services to address their issues in the system, people sent to prison without sufficient evidence, and you ladies have taken that on as a task. I want to find out from each of you individually why this particular passion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Wendy. For us, what we know is America is addicted to incarceration. And that grows from its history of putting people in bondage and human caging. I am very passionate about liberation and making sure that people have access to lawyers, access to justice. And a lot of people don't know that your right to a lawyer ends after you're convicted in your first appeal. So at that point, you're left trying to defend and free yourself without any assistance of a lawyer, any help, anyone standing in solidarity with you. That's the hole in the gap that we're filling in the American system. It's my belief that we have to provide counsel for people, even when they can't afford it, even when they don't have the means, even if they come from poverty, and that no person is the sum total of their worst decision, right? And so that's what we're responding to. And we're making sure that people are represented zealously.
And what about you, Jackie? What drives your passion for it?
And that's exactly right. So when we talk about mass incarceration, particularly in the United States, it predominantly affects black and brown men in our work, but it's not just that limited microcosm. It's a humanitarian issue. And what we're talking about is the separation of families. We're talking about the breakdown of society. We're talking about leaving people behind, literally left behind, sentenced to die in prison. And so my passion, to answer your question, comes from just that idea, as my angel touched on, that each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done.
Sometimes we haven't even done that so-called worst thing.
Exactly.
We just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
You know.
And I think what we do is look at the conditions in which people make decisions. Have they had fair access to the legitimate economy? Right? No one wakes up in the morning and decides, I want to go sell drugs. It's a very dangerous, difficult occupation, right? And so what are the conditions? What was defunded before they made that decision? Was education defunded? Was mental health services defunded? Were communities defunded? Were bloodlines disrupted? And that is, all of those factors need to be presented in court. Otherwise, you don't know the full humanity of that person.
I realize, Jackie, that, you say you don't count it as a number. It's not about the dockets. It's not about whether or not this case mirrors one that comes before. It's all about the individual who's there and the contributions which he or she could have made to society.
And that's exactly right. And what we truly believe, and this comes through in our work, not just in the courtroom, but as we do outside of the courtroom, everyone has a story to tell. And your story is the totality of everything you've done thus far, everything you are doing, and everything that you will do. So what we like to think of it is that your story is not this. There's no final chapter until you move on from this lifetime, so to say.
Yes.
Right. So we deal in the past, the present, and the future. And so your story doesn't have a middle, beginning, and an end. It has a past, it has a present, it has a future. And what we do is we take your past and we say, that shaped you. That's who you are. We're not going to hide from that past. We're not going to run from that past. We're going to embrace that past because that's part of you. And then here's your present situation. What can we do to change that present situation so that way your future situation is what you can make? Because every single one of us has that potential to do what we want to do and what we should do.
I want to get back to a comment that my angel made earlier about how incarceration benefits the system. And the U.S., unlike Barbados, makes money off of prisons. Unfortunately, the ones who end up making that money for the system are the ones your color and mine, more so than anything else.
Absolutely. What we know is last year, $81 billion was the amount of money and profit that the American carceral system made off of human bondage, right? There are privatized prisons that are very profitable, and most people don't know that those are owned by corporations. They think they're run by the government, but in America, there are whole corporations that own prisons and own human cages. And at the same time, there are people who are investing in those private prisons. Today, we call them shareholders. But 200 years ago, we called them slaveholders, right? It's the same pattern of colonial human bondage we're working to disrupt, because it's the same idea that we can profit off of keeping people in cages. And a lot of people don't know that when you have a life sentence, you're just sitting in a cell or watching television. You have to work in a $1-a-day economy, growing crops for food that people eat, making uniforms for the military. And that kind of unpaid labor is exactly what Black people have experienced for centuries.
So none of them have a system whereby some of the proceeds go toward any kind of fund for family or anything like that?
No. And I've represented people who've made $2 to $3 a day, working for 10 to 12 hours in the prison system. That money does not go back to families, and that's how families are defunded, right? That's how the prison population has exploded, and it's become very profitable, but only for the status quo majority.
Okay. Jackie, in terms of clients finding you, I love the ad, by the way. That's power. That's woman power to the fore. But in terms of people finding you, how sought after are you for? Because, I mean, there aren't a lot of people who, do this ordinarily or that will advertise that they do it. Because we always see the legal fraternity as one where the players are money hungry. We think it's all about the Benjamins, and we assume that nobody sees the good or wants to pull good from the system.
So the short answer to your question is how many people? Many.
Yes.
A lot. But I think one thing that's beautiful about our work is that it's not that. It's not if you have enough money, you get to us. We literally have, so through, for example, social media. If you email info@decarceration law, you'll get us.
Okay.
And you won't get a spam bot or whatever.
Okay, it won't be an automated reply.
Yeah, you'll get one of us.
Okay.
Literally one of us. And so we do have lots of families are how we get our clients that have reached out, and that loved one has been buried alive.
And I don't know who else gets tired of it, but I do. I get tired of seeing the stories where a man has been in prison from, say, age 16, 17. He's now well into his 50s or 60s, and somebody is now finding out that DNA at that scene was never his. It was never brought into the custodial chain in the first place. There were so many bits and pieces along that chain that were just missing. We just decided to remove the links.
Right, and I think one thing I would say is to call it a system is a misnomer, because it is chaos. It is not organized in a systemic way in order to administer justice fairly. It is chaos, it is disparity, and it is oppression. And so what you're talking about is what we see all of the time, where we see prior lawyers who've had their clients plead guilty to a life sentence and never even went to trial. Or the people who in prison can't read and no one ever read the case file to them. So they don't even understand what they're up against and they're fighting, right?
And so that's real, isn't it?
That's real.
Absolutely.
And that's part of their story. That's part of their experience in the system. But really what's happened is their whole human experience has been erased.
Yeah, that's really sad. Now, let's look at you as individuals and how you balance it. Your family life, You know, I'm sure there are other things you like to do other than lawyering, but for the intensity of what you do, it seems as though you all need another 24 hours in each day.
I love traveling.
Okay.
So, you know, we're here in Barbados, obviously very intentionally to link arms and learn. But travel is my passion, it's my hobby, it's my love. I think for me, getting out of the geo-colonial borders of the United States and seeing how other people are wrestling with the experience of life is very important.
And for you, Jackie?
Oh, well, for me, I mean, I have a 10-year-old and a husband who is oftentimes the second 10-year-old, as I think many women can relate to.
Yes.
So, you know, that just, you know, sense of literal, you know, family outside of my decarceration family and our family of, but a literal family.
Okay. We'll take a commercial break and we will be back with these ladies to tell us a whole lot more that's going on. And you can call us 228-5562, 228-5563 if you may have a question or two for them.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Enjoy movies, soaps, drama, comedy, inspiration, education, music, and more. You get it all when you get MCTV, because MCTV gives you more.
The facts say Morning Barbados reaches an audience of over 50,000 and Newsnight reaches over 56,000. It's simple. When you advertise, you're getting your message to over 50,000 of your potential customers. Make the call to CBC Sales Department today and watch your business grow. Contact us at 467-5559 or email marketing@cbc.bb. From the beautiful shores of the gem of the Caribbean, Barbados, home of the amazing Harrison's Cave, the tantalizing Oystins Bay Garden, our historic garrison, the indigenous road tennis, and the friendliest people in the world. We are 94.7 FM, the ultimate Bajan experience.
Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And we're back with the ladies of the Decarceration Collective, Maya Angel Cody and Jackie Phelps. They're with us. Remember, you can call us 228-5562, 228-5563 if you have anything to ask the ladies. Now, why come together and create a firm as opposed to going at it individually from your own separate spaces and places?
I started the Decarceration Collective in 2016. I had been a public defender in Chicago for about 9 years. And what I realized is that I really wanted to do two things. I wanted to create a space for women lawyers to learn and master the craft of standing at the podium fiercely and fearlessly. And so it was really important to me to have a firm that was powered by women. And I also realized that I love picking locks to prisons and using my brain, my talents, my purpose to do that and to get people out who had been sentenced essentially to living death sentences, because that's what a life sentence is. Those are the people who need us the most, who have the least resources. So we see ourselves as like Navy SEALs who go in. We swim in when everyone else says that you've lost your first appeal, you've been convicted, you've been sentenced. And I wanted to link arms with women and to go get those people.
And you have been getting them indeed.
We have gotten 50.
Oh,
50
that's
souls, 50 people who America threw away and said that they were irredeemable. And each time we get someone free and they're back with their family, they're back with their daughter, they're going to someone's wedding, they're having a child, we're proving that this person's, as Jackie said, their story, the ending was not that life sentence.
Okay. And how did you come to meet Maya Angel?
So serendipity.
Okay.
I had just, I was a public school teacher for many, many years before I actually went to law school.
What a switch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this was obviously a second second career path. And I was just, you know, I graduated law school and I was searching, and I literally saw an ad. And it was for work that I had been doing with the Federal Defender's Office where I live in Oklahoma City. And one thing led to another. And that's one thing that, you know, my angel talks about the idea of cultivating, you know, this firm and this collective, like we call, you know, the Decarceration Collective. But it truly is that collective, because it's not just about us. And my angel, you know, has imparted this to me. It's about teaching that next generation, not of people to
not
come
just
in
lawyers
and do this, and why it's necessary and important.
I think it's because we have to encourage people to have a conscience as well, because sometimes too many of us don't want to go against the status quo.
And you know, that is part of the reason why we created the Decarceration Collective the way that we did. We're not the traditional law firm. We don't look like the traditional law firm.
At all.
We don't move like the traditional law firm. It was very important to me that we're not just lawyers. So on our team, we also have Bella Boz, who is a Chicago-based, brilliant, what we call architect of living futures. She's a raptivist, she's an artist. We have other artists on the team, a psychologist who works with us. So we understand that decarceration, by definition, isn't just walking people out of prison, because a lot of people are rearrested by poverty the minute they leave the prison gates. So we want to make sure that they are able to access the finish line of their human potential and liberation as well. So if one of our clients calls and says they don't know how to open a checking account, we want to make sure they have financial literacy. If someone calls and says that they feel depressed after prison because prison is traumatic, then we want to make sure that we're connecting them with mental health services. So that's the way that we built the Decarceration Collective, because that's why we believe decarceration is more than just leaving prison.
Wow, an entirely holistic approach toward it.
Just to kind of add to that, I think it's interesting to me because being here in Barbados, in this beautiful country, I have been curious about the recent sort of the literal throwing off of the colonial masters that recently happened. Yes. And I was looking at the charter that was put together in 2021. Leading up to that, and one of the parts in the preamble that really stuck out to me was talking about you literally used the word dismantling the policies that led to had been in place, and that was beautiful to me because that's literally one of our three branches, is that dismantle branch, and that's what my angel's talking about. It's not just getting people home, it's getting people home and making sure that they have
a home and they know what home is meant to be like. Not what somebody else somewhere in a boardroom has prescribed, or somebody else has said you can't measure up, so therefore you will stay here and go no further. We have to go way beyond the boundary.
Exactly. That's exactly correct.
Way beyond. Remember, you can call us 228-5562, 228-5563. I'm sure you have some questions for these lovely ladies. Now, that, I must say, is something else that grabbed me about you. How you manage your social media and you take command of the legal side of things, but you also let it be known that you each have your own persona. And there's, so depending on how I might be as a client, I might be better off because one of you seems to be a little bit shy and reserved like myself, or a bit more outgoing like you. And that's really, really interesting how you keep that dynamic there as well, because you're still all individuals, in your own right. And that's brilliant. So combined, how many legal years are we talking about between the four of you?
Oh, I've been a lawyer. This year will be 20.
Okay.
So I would say total we're maybe 30-ish.
That's awesome.
I've defended hundreds of cases as a federal defender. You're in court all the time doing trials, doing appeals. We've won executive clemencies with 2 presidents. So my mantra is we will go and pick the lock wherever it is. From the courtroom to Congress, that's where we're going to be. And I think to respond to your comment about how we want to publicly present ourselves, we're very deeply in conversation with the culture and with Black people and people who are in prison. And I see myself as being purely a custodian and messenger of what the culture wants, which is freedom and liberation and self-determination. And so, and I always want to make sure that people can reach us and can see themselves in us, because I see myself in every person who I represent.
Because I was just going to say that to you, that with the way that Blacks are still being treated in the U.S., incarceration could be anyone's lot at any time. You just have perhaps maybe to drive incorrectly or say the wrong thing to an officer. There's just no telling. We actually have a call. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes, go right ahead with your question.
First, to commend the ladies for the work that they're doing.
Thank you.
And to ask this question, is the majority of your work coming out of the inner cities? Is there a demographic? Is a lot of the stuff happening in the South? Tell us about that.
Sure. So we will go wherever the case is. We have a national law practice, which means that we have cases in Iowa, we have cases in Chicago and Philadelphia. What we know is that mass incarceration in America happened predominantly as a weapon of mass destruction to Black and brown communities. And our mission is to respond wherever it shows up and to bring mass decarceration. So we're everywhere. We're everywhere people call us. We've had people send letters to us from places where we weren't licensed to practice, and then we got admitted to practice there because we wanted to take that case.
That was going to be a next question to you. How many bars are you cleared to?
Federal court, I think at least between the two of us, 30, from district courts around the country to 5 or 6 courts of appeals. I'm admitted to the Supreme Court. So we're going.
Okay, right. Keep going.
Don't
stop, don't give up. There are people out there depending on you. They are. So what have you enjoyed best about Barbados so far?
Oh, so, well, I want to just first kind of explain why we're here, how we've made the decision to come here. And in leading the decarceration as a Black woman lawyer, it was really, really compelling to me that the first president of Barbados is a Black woman and lawyer, and that the first woman prime minister is a Black woman and lawyer. And so to bring my team here to just stand on the soil, it was very, very important. Since we've been here, it's been amazing. We took a 3-hour hike with the Barbadian Hiking Association, and just really got to walk through different parts of Barbados and hear the history, the Land for the Landless project, to hear the history of how economic resources are redistributed, and to be taught by people, right? And so that's been my favorite part, is just getting out and standing on the soil. I believe that we're in a place in America where we have to leave and expand to find solutions in the diaspora.
Okay, and for you, Jackie?
Absolutely the same. First of all, it's obviously a very beautiful country. Beautiful. But I think that's exactly it. It's been the people, every single person, whether it was just a person walking down the street, stop to talk, it's just been a beautiful human, in my opinion. And I just love that, and I loved, as my angel was talking about, we went on the hike and how that got formed as sort of a restoration of the original culture, and just bringing that in to educate people, because we're also educators too. And I absolutely have loved that, and I think the people match the landscape.
That we do. Beauty in and out. I want to thank my angel Cody and Jackie Phelps of the Decarceration Collective for joining me here on Morning Barbados. Enjoy the rest of your time in BIM. Make sure that you take advantage of all the food, the flavors, and the rum. Don't forget. Just have a little bit. It's good for you. All right? And here's to a wonderful 2024 and helping more people that the system has tried to disconnect.
Thank you.
Morning Barbados will be back after the break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We enjoy a game of dominoes and singing karaoke.
I just love crew.
When you love me just a little bit longer.
You get to relax and have a drink and listen to some nice music.
It's something different. It's spectacular. It's fabulous. It's a different feeling altogether.
I never feel so good in a party yet.
Follow me to Q in the Community this Thursday.
So good in a party yet. You know why?
My friend, you don't plan to get her? Oh, Barbados. Hey, I'm KB Clean. Join me 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. right here at 94.7, the best and ultimate Bajan experience. My show is called Bajan to the Bone. Don't miss it, Bajan to the Bone. Weekdays right here and only here on 94.7.
I'm Anne St. John, a consultant pediatrician. When packing healthy lunch boxes,
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Here now is your morning news recap. The National Substance Abuse Foundation has begun to celebrate Drug Awareness Month. Yesterday, the foundation held a church service to kick off the celebrations. Speaking at the service, Director of Clinical Services at Verdun and Marina House, Alison Gotip, said the issue of drugs needs to be addressed in all organizations and communities.
The use, misuse, and abuse of mood-altering substances impacts the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of persons and their loved ones. Therefore, it is great at this time to acknowledge that it's not a they problem, but a we problem that needs to be tackled on all levels, within all parishes, within all religious communities, government entities, and non-governmental organizations.
Also speaking at the service was one of the graduates from Verdun House, Anderson A. He shared a message to the congregation about how drug addicts should be treated.
Drug addicts are not bad people, are just some junkie and losers who deserve to die. They are actually good people who have families that love them, but just ended up being a victim to the disease of addiction. And they can't help it. So if you can't help them, don't hurt them. But instead of judging them, pray for them.
The Barbados Consumer Employment Network, BSAN, is concerned about commercial banks failing to comply with the recent directive issued by the central bank. Last week, the Central Bank of Barbados instructed banks that no fees should be imposed for electronic transactions through the Automated Clearinghouse, or ACH, and that any fees presently charged for electronic transactions through the ACH be immediately discontinued. Executive Director of BSAN, Mornin Holder, in a statement, however, notes that days later, at least one bank was still charging customers.
BSEN wants further public discourse and disclosure so as to ensure even greater consumer protection for consumers using online banking services. Now, there's reason to believe and evidence to support that as of Saturday, 6th of January 2024, that a commercial bank in Barbados that is already involved in the practice of charging fees for local online banking services continues to do so. And this bank does so despite the recent edict from the Central Bank of Barbados to desist from such practices.
In addition to calling for the central bank to intensify its supervision and surveillance, BSEN suggests non-compliant banks should face penalties.
We at BSEN believe that failing to comply with the central bank's directive should invoke penalties, or in lieu of such, the Central Bank of Barbados could consider the use of temporary suspension measures for specific online banking services. BSEN also believes that such action could serve as a strong incentive for prompt compliance from commercial banks.
The Barbados Workers Union has welcomed news of plans to introduce legislation to establish minimum standards for tourism and hospitality workers. The announcement was made by Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley during her live address to the nation over the weekend. This follows months of contention between the Barbados Workers Union and the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association. Reacting to the news, General Secretary of the BWU, Tony Moore, has hailed it as a victory, as she suggests it is the culmination of the union's Recipe for Respect campaign.
This journey was not without its challenges. We faced skepticism and criticism, with some voices in the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association dismissing our efforts as a smear campaign. However, we stood undeterred, fueled by the righteousness of our cause. Today, with the affirming words of the Prime Minister of Barbados, we have a clear vindication. Her comments are not just a nod to our campaign, but a resounding acknowledgement that our demands were just and our fight noble.
Ms. Moore has vowed the union will continue to advocate for workers.
Let it be known that the Barbados Workers Union will accept nothing less than total compliance from the BHTA. While we are disappointed by the turns our campaign had to take, we do not regret our actions. Our path, though strewn with obstacles, was necessary. It was a path towards fairness, dignity, and respect for every worker in the hotel and tourism sector. As we look forward to the enactment of this groundbreaking legislation, we call upon our members and every hotel worker to remain vigilant. Report any deviation you see. The Barbados Workers Union will ensure that promises made are promises kept.
Chair of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Tricia Tanis, says if all things remain the same as it relates to promised reductions in port costs, there should be a reduction in prices for consumers this year. Her remarks come on the heels of Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley's announcing that container-related port charges will see a further reduction of 7.5%, and this comes after a 10% reduction implemented just last year. The Prime Minister also said she's not satisfied that the reductions are being passed on to consumers. In responding to the news, Ms. Tanis acknowledged that reductions should come if all things remain the same. She added, however, that a number of factors go into the final cost of products.
As it relates to the announced reductions in some port charges or some further reductions in port charges, yes, if all things remain as they currently are, all things being equal, there should be a reduction in prices of the affected items if those port reductions and reductions in port charges are passed to the consumer. However, who will be tracking the movements in all factors that contribute to a given price? Who will track the movement in fuel and electricity costs, for instance, salaries, transportation costs, and other overheads that are impacted by inflation, or indeed the most obvious, shipping costs and the original invoice prices of the imported commodities?
Ms. Tanner says unless the relevant monitoring bodies have a full view of all factors influencing prices, it will be difficult to identify who has passed or not passed on specific reductions.
Let's hope that all things do remain equal and that the stated reductions translate into an ease for consumers. However, we're already seeing some issues in terms of shipping costs. We do know that those will remain elevated or even escalate depending on what happens with the global supply chain challenges that we're seeing in the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal and other commodity prices that are moving as well. The price of oil and the fluctuations thereof that have an immediate impact on most costs, because that's a key input and a trigger and a multiplier across most costs of the business and in the economy. So things are not likely to remain equal, but let's hope that as many things remain as they are as possible so that we can see these reductions translate into an ease for consumers.
Guyana's main opposition party has voiced disappointment with the government's incremental strategy towards implementing free university education, accusing the Irfan Ali administration of politicizing the University of Guyana. Additionally, the party has outlined various initiatives it plans to undertake should it be returned to office. We have a report from HGP TV.
Last week, President Dr. Irfan Ali announced a step-by-step approach toward free university education, with the first step dealing with students currently burdened by loans. However, opposition leader Aubrey Norton at a press conference on Thursday expressed dismay over the government's reluctance to immediately implement free university education for Guyanese citizens. In fact, Norton accused the government of viewing the University of Guyana as a political pawn rather than a national priority.
This is the only explanation for the president's anti-climatic announcement that the University of Guyana would, I quote, step by step be free by 2025, a likely election year when it should be free and well-funded right now.
The leader highlighted Guyana's long-standing commitment to providing free education at the university level even before the era of oil wealth. He expressed bewilderment at the administration's failure to prioritize immediate realization of free university education, citing the constitutional right of Guyanese citizens.
And that's your morning news recap. When we return after the break, more Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Kids Karaoke is a platform for young aspiring singers to shine and express their musical abilities. Tune in to CBC TV 8 on Mondays at 5:30 p.m. and repeat it on Saturdays at 2 p.m. and enjoy the performances of these talented young singers.
For the past 19 years, QFM has been sharing with you, learning from you, and together building a community for all mature audiences. That's why we say Q is good for you. To our Q family, we say thank you for staying connected to Q 100.7 FM. QFM is a station of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. CBC, celebrating 60, connecting Barbadian communities.
Are you a youth group, 4-H club, school, Cub Scout, or Brownie Pack, or any organization or club?
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And we're back here now on Morning Barbados. 2024 has opened up and there's no telling what's in store for a number of different groups, organizations. And one such organization that we will be hearing from is that of Barvin. Yes, we'll be hearing from the Barbados Association of Retailers, Vendors and Entrepreneurs of Barvin. Joining me, I have Mr. Valentino Barrow. Mr. Alistair Alexander, the president, Valentino is the PRO, and Robert Maloney, the roving communications officer with Barvin. Welcome this morning, gentlemen, to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's review 2023. Vending had some pluses in 2023 in terms of being allowed to be on the highways without the persecution, the whole lot of it. You had some new markets come into play. You had some additional placement for some of your people. You got an entire pasture there on which, you know, to do what we need to do and get vending where it is.
Yes.
But you've also been taking some tongue lashing. How has it been for you, Alistair?
Well, let me say good morning, Barbados. Good morning to you, Wendy. We wishing Barbados a prosperous and a productive and a blessed new year. Well, you know, it is very simple for me in life. I don't really live by a CNN poll. I live by a spiritual philosophy, and I believe that, you know, I cannot be weary in well-doing, for in due season we always reap according to what God has said, if we faint not. Okay, and we expect that. That is all part of the what we do. Okay, nobody will be without criticism, tongue lashing, whatever, right? But we dismiss the negative, and we always look to the positive.
Okay.
That is how Barvin moves.
Now,
And our general philosophy, well, we have a motto that says finding solutions through consultation as opposed to confrontation.
Understood. And I don't know, maybe perhaps Valentino, you can tell me how much consulting has been done over the year in the organization in terms of keeping membership, you know, where they need to be and ensuring that you were able to iron out their issues.
Well, I could tell you, good morning, Barbados, by the way, and a happy new year to all. Consultation towards a lot of people, as we have found that we are getting new members now. I don't want to say thanks to COVID, but yes, many have found a new calling because they lost the previous one. So we are getting a lot of people coming to us. Some are seeking stalls. As you would know, the new facility at Fairchild Street is still being constructed, but the predominance of the units for the tenants have been constructed. And the question is, how do they go about obtaining or not obtaining one so that they can start, how should I put it, a new calling? And others are also asking questions pertaining to the legislation of the land, the National Vendors Policy, that we are hopeful will be proclaimed this year.
Yes.
You know, that's what is stopping a lot of the measurements from being active, because it has not been proclaimed. So it has been a good year as to the outlook of Barvin. People showing an interest in Barvin, although sometimes I think the interest came only because of the position they are in at the present time.
Understood. But nonetheless, they'll be on board. And you, Mr. Maloney, we often see you in Bridgetown, where the bulk of the vendors still remain and still do get some flack every now and again from various forces. We won't necessarily say who, because we don't want to finger any particular group, but they still have their issues.
Yes.
How have you been helping them to meander those situations in the city?
Yes, I would like to also say Happy New Year to Barbados and to all of the members of Barvin. The way how Barvin looks at the development of Bridgetown, we don't look at it as an individual level. We deal with everything from a nationalistic level perspective and point of view, which is uniting the bottom with the whole. So where there used to be certain conflict between the vendors and certain authorities, we would see that those obstacles, in a sense, or those forces have minimized and have been willing to compromise, to the fact that they even have changed their name from being the Barbados Police Force to now they have become the Barbados Police Service. So we would see that is a national approach at the national transformation of Barbados, and the police force has continued to play their role. So now you will find a more symbolic relationship developing amongst the vending community and all the forces, the store owners, the people within this community, patrons. But as we continue to go through this national transformation, that is the mindset that we would want our persons to be having. So Barvin agrees 100% with Ms. Motley's vision, her thoughts for Barbados development for 2024. So these are the topics that Barvin is engaged with, seeing that unity at that level, not just an individual level, a personal level or organizational level, but have that vision along with Ms. Motley and the rest of Barbados to see Barbados developing at that national level.
Okay.
If I may add to the point about the city, the police, the national or national police force, police service has they have formed a group with the different stakeholders in the city called the Bridgetown Unity Group. So that is where we are at this point.
Okay.
Right. It is more a social partnership at this point.
So how regular have you been meeting?
Well, we have met. It is a recent.
Online.
It is a recent thing.
Okay.
Right.
It is online. We're
So
also going digital.
Right.
That's good.
So yes.
At least you know there's an ear there.
Yeah. We only about 2 weeks ago, we came together, right, to discuss issues of Bridgetown.
Now we're talking about issues of Bridgetown. What remains some of the challenges for your vendors? For me, lighting is an issue in the city. And I don't think that sales necessarily should cease at 6 o'clock when it gets dark, because there's still people who are working till 8 or 9 who might have need of some produce or something that the vendors may have. But what outside of that, what are some of the other challenges that you would like to see addressed in 2024, Alistair?
Well, again, the Bridgetown Unity Group that was discussed by the police, the same lighting, that was one of their major concerns. Okay, so they are about putting together a solution to that.
Because
okay?
for me, with the whole renewable technology and solar and so on, I see that as maybe an awesome way to get it done.
You're quite right.
That way you're not necessarily pulling pockets, you know, it's
That's
not
correct.
as easy for you to be looking to damage, because you can easily plug and go. You know, we do it when we have markets, when we have all the festivals on and the vendors come and set up. You come in, you put your bulb in, away you vend for the time of that. You know, I don't see that it should necessarily be any different on the streets.
Well, this
my guy here is laughing because he seems to have proposed the same thing.
Well, and to be honest, you know, it's amazing in this world right now, all this technological advance we are talking about. And unfortunately, I have to say this as it relates to Fairchild Street Market Village, where we were very grateful for the technology, but now these magic solar lights that you refer to, we have quite a few. And right now,
they're not working.
the majority of them have, as a matter of fact, phase 2, only one light has worked, and that's the light that has on a camera that transmits to the Barbados Police Service. That's the only one in phase 2. And 7 from phase 1 not functioning.
Well, somebody's listening, so they will get on that.
I want to say a word about that. There's an expert I was told that was brought in And I would like that individual to please live up to their reputation.
Understood. Understood.
Thank you.
They will rectify your situation for you.
Yes,
but
but-
now we're on the matter of that market up there. How have they settled? You mentioned that other people are looking for space and want to be a part of it, but it was only designed to hold so many.
Yes, it was. And we are going to be presently in this month, hopefully, although it's fleeting, probably between now and February, to get a meeting with the authorities to deal with certain matters pertaining to that, as to some of the tenants that we have not seen that were supposed to be coming into the facility has not yet come into the facility.
Because you don't want them taking up space if they don't want it anymore.
That is one. And two, if they already have a unit
Elsewhere.
within this present facility that recently constructed, they should have to forfeit
Add a second one.
the previous spot they had, because that's one of the reasons why it was done, to help get some of those vendors
Off
into a
the
new
street,
home
into
and
a new
off
home.
of the street.
Yes, much more
Right.
hygienic situations and so
Of
on
course.
for them to flow.
Of course.
Speaking about the challenges, we have a old challenge really at Cheapside Market. Cheapside Market was constructed
still a
before.
Cheapside?
Yes, please.
Yes, there is.
Cheapside Market was built, was refurbished without a plan, in my opinion, a business plan, maybe a construction plan they had, okay, but they need to have a business plan towards what is a business, okay, entrepreneurs. There must be a business plan. You have a situation where they don't have no parking, and they are being, when vendors are offloading and such like, they are being ticketed, and that is not fair. That is not correct. Okay, they should have had, and they must still look at some I don't know, some place, some kind of parking facility, right? Facilitation for the vendors at Cheapside.
There was the area where you all operated prior to going to Spring Garden. Couldn't that be possibly used for parking?
It's possible. That may be a suggestion.
Because it
Yes,
seems
it
a
could be a
no-brainer to me.
suggestion.
It's just a short walk away.
It's a short walk
You know,
away.
you do your offloading, you put your vehicle down, and you're good to go for the balance of the day till it's time to pick the stuff up again.
Yes, it is a suggestion, right? Because, you know, to criminalize these vendors for what they did not, I mean, the problem they did not create, it's completely wrong.
But we know
And
Bridgetown traffic on a Saturday morning is horrendous anyway.
Anyhow.
Because, and I think too that some vendors have to accept a little bit of the blame, because if you encourage your customers to just decide they're going to pull up to the curb and not just take one bag and go, but they're going to shop through the window as opposed to getting out and shopping, which you're supposed to do. You know, Peter is making bad for Paul.
Well, we don't ascribe to Peter making bad for Paul, although it may be true, right? Nobody, no profession, no doctor wants to hear because there's a bad doctor.
That all of them are painted with the same brush.
Lawyers,
Yes.
nor police, nor politicians. So we will not allow that there for the vendors.
So
but we
even
understand
that-
the point
Yeah.
that you are making, and on the point that you are making, we are clear that a responsible organization has not only to represent the rights of its members, but also have to speak to the responsibilities
Thank you.
of its members.
And reprimand when they're failing.
Of course, we don't play. Bargain
Good.
do not play.
I see Mr. Maloney quite often
Right.
having to intervene in situations.
Right.
Yes.
So. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's look quickly at 2024. What are some of the things you want to do going forward?
Well, 2024. There's a lot that we would like to see happen. And let me say that you know, we have accomplished a lot, and we always speak of Mayor Motley. We can't help because it is a historical fact, right? The things that she has done, right? The contribution she has made towards the vending sector since she was Attorney General, right? When we first met her. In fact, all the promises that she promised us, I can't speak for nobody else, but I can speak for the vending sector. She has fulfilled or tried hard. And the reality is that a lot of what we want to do is still words, still on paper.
Like, for example,
Right.
those new vending zones,
Right.
Redmond
Still on
Village and
paper.
the like.
And you know, for me, words without works are dead.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
And we don't want a dead
No, we have to
vending
live.
sector.
No, we have to make it live. My understanding, right, this for 2024 is that it must live. In fact, my man here, my PRO, he has a slogan.
Smiling.
Yeah, he has a slogan. He always comes up with these slogans. He say that Barvin puts Barbados first, right? And he has a strategy. It is what we are about, but he came up with a little catchy something. It is well.
It's actually two characters,
Uh-huh.
C and O. But forget the and, you could put the and
So-
yourself,
so it
but
could be
CO.
C-co. C is so cool.
CO, cool, yeah, be cool. this year.
Corporation, corp.
And the C for me represents clean up.
Yes.
And the O, simple, organize. As we've been trying to do from the inception.
Exactly. You just have a couple bad seeds along the
You
way
know.
that need to be dealt with.
And we want to deal with them. I'm all for vending. I'm all for vendors. I mean, I know this is 166. And if everything shrinks in age, Barbados is old and we probably shrinking too. But the bottom line is this. I'm seeing people all over the place. They're popping up and I feel their pain. Because I don't think they're just doing it because they want to hang.
No,
they're looking for a livelihood. Yes, they need to live.
Okay.
But we still have to be organized
In what we do.
in what we do.
And I'm glad that you gentlemen have organized things with Barvin. I want to thank you for coming this morning. I wish you well into
Always a pleasure.
2024,
Thank you.
especially in trying to get a handle on these coconut vendors. We love our
Yeah,
coconut jelly. I love my water.
yes.
But at the same time, those shells bring rodents
And
and,
that's
other
the-
things.
that's the part of the
quickly.
cleanup, you see.
And we need
We
to clean
reference
up.
And if
That's the
quickly
part that's
he
there.
could speak.
Well, we
quickly,
have to
quickly.
just wrap,
Yes, wrap up.
quickly.
Yes. So again, Ms. Barr, as you was earlier alluding to, right? We as Barvin, we just fit into where we naturally see ourselves. To the development, we see ourselves as nation builders. You know, heroes in disguise. So our
Not in disguise, because if you feed me, it can't be disguised. It's open. I buy my foods.
Yes.
So thank you again,
Yeah, thank you
gentlemen,
so much.
Always a
and
pleasure
have
being
a
here.
great morning. Morning Barbados will be back after the break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Are you a youth group, 4-H club, school, Cub Scout, or Brownie Pack, or any organization or club with children ages 4 to 11 years? If yes is the answer, then we at Fun School, we're looking for you. Let's have fun singing, dancing, listening to amazing stories, doing craft, and so much more. I'm such a kid at heart. But to be part of this fun and exciting new season of Fun School, just simply send an email to Alicia Alves Grant at aagrant@cbc.bb for further details. Fun School is back, and we're looking for you.
Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And Morning Barbados is back. Listen, I'm feeling the sunshine on the outside, inside. So let's hope that what Jamal has to tell me this morning will help keep things cool and calm here as we talk film and Barbados's film industry. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Wendy, and good morning to your viewers across Barbados.
Now, Jamal Slocum is the president of the Barbados Film and Television Association. And in 2023, we would have seen some new emerging talent come to the fore, because that's what a film and TV is always all about. It's about recognizing new talent, rewarding it. Do you think your 2023 did enough to keep it all in focus?
Well, I think that there's always room for improvement. We've seen tremendous development in the film sector in Barbados, as well as the television sector as well. We recognize that we've seen Camouflage, which has now emerged to be one of the greatest pieces of film, and it's the art itself that we've seen in recent years in Barbados. But we also recognize that other production houses have been working on some other television programs and really trying to get the local talent engaged, whether they're actors, whether they are TV presenters like yourself. We also recognize that there's also the inclusion now of those who work in the makeup industry and working on prosthetics and other aspects. During Halloween, we saw a lot of people using even the digital platforms to create some interesting content. So we recognize that people are becoming more aware that they have the platforms available to them to use, and people are taking initiative now to create.
Now, in terms of that initiative they're taking, what is the BFTA offering in terms of training, access to spaces, places for the talent to continue to thrive?
Yeah, so we've been very focused on creating an enabling environment. Over the last year, we were really trying to get our structure as an organization correct. We've been in existence for over 15 years now. We celebrate the success of the organization, from being able to work with government to be able to create the Culture Industry Development Act. And now we are here working. We did the consultations with the Film Act, which will be coming very shortly.
Okay.
And we also did we were very engaged. Our past president was very engaged in the consultations that occurred that allowed our Prime Minister to be able to actually bring forward some incentives in the last budget last year. So we've been focused on primarily looking at how we can create that structure for the industry. Yes, it is still developing as developing sector, so everything is not perfect, but we've been focused on creating that enabling environment. As far as goes to training, we've just put the foundation ready for our Business of Film workshop series.
Okay.
We realized that there are some phenomenal creatives out there, filmmakers, television producers, and directors. They already have a strong understanding of the art. They know how to create. But what we're trying to help them to do now is to be able to turn their passions into profit.
Yes.
And by
monetizing
doing
is quite
that is
key.
where it is. That's where it is. So we want to teach them or expose them to training in the areas of tax compliance and also insurance, and to be able to understand budgeting, and also when we look at aspects of even grant proposal writing, because there are hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars out there even in the global sector, and where people can apply for grants, but obviously they're not necessarily equipped with the knowledge to be able to go about the correct. So these are the things that we're working on. We just want to get the foundation right at this stage.
Okay, now that's awesome. Now, you all would have also gotten to return to your mix and mingles. Over the time, there's some people who would have exited, and at NIAS. Unfortunately, this weekend we heard of the death of one of your people as well.
Correct.
So condolences to Miss Williams' family. Now, you're also talks about lifetime membership and trying to grow that membership in your organization. What are your plans to get that achieved now?
Well, we're really focusing on our membership benefit scheme. The reality is that not only just in the film and television sector, but in the broader creative sector, we realize that a lot of individuals are not really able to sustain their livelihoods. We are now looking at areas of which we may be able to support our members through providing a card that gives some sort of incentive. But we've looked at insurance plans as well. We realize that our counterparts in Jamaica, they have a similar program, and we've somewhat engaged Saeed and his team there to get some information on how they go about doing that. We've created the policy on it to be able to get our members, engaged. I think part of the problem is that, we recognize that creatives live in an environment where there's not traditionally stable income all the time.
Okay.
So we want to be able to say, hey, not only life insurance or health insurance, but we also look at pension plans for them.
Yeah, because it is a sector, it is a job, so
Correct.
you want to make from it. Now let's look quickly at your Young Creatives initiative, your Young Filmmakers initiative.
That's the baby. That's the baby. By the end of the academic year of 2025 to 2026, the aim is to have a film club in every secondary school in Barbados. We believe that we need to have somewhat of a feeder program so that young people can understand that they can have a viable career in the film and television sector. People somewhat see it still as a hobby.
Okay.
And we believe that it is an industry. We have outstanding individuals out there doing really great work. Dan Jamal Weeks is in LA working. Neil Hope has just gone back to Vancouver in Canada and doing great work out there. And these are people who have made a living out of the sector. So our Young Filmmakers initiative is designed in such a way to be able to help those young people to see the benefits in the film sector, but also as well to be able to work with them on different areas like civic responsibility, looking at climate change, how to use their cell phone devices for positive things.
Yes.
We see a lot of people filming fights and all sorts of things in school. What can we how can we help those young people to realize that their mobile devices can be used for something positively?
Exactly.
So that's the aim
The
there.
other thing too, I want to look at, because we were talking about technology and how we use it. Where do our drones people fit in your organization?
So this is a very interesting dynamic. We have a lot of drone operators in our organization. We're closely working with a young man, Alec Dre, who is one of the foremost drone operators in Barbados. And we just wrote to the Civil Aviation Authority. We wrote to them in December. We also wrote to the minister with responsibility for the Civil Aviation Authority, because there's still a lot of challenges when it comes to the use of drones in Barbados. I've spoken about this probably since April last year. The reality is there's still a ban on the drones that has been there for probably now since 2016. And that ban has still not been lifted on the importation of drones. That is something we really need to look at.
So we're basically functioning now with old equipment.
Correct, with old equipment. Yes, there's still some window for persons to apply to have an importation. But really and truly, there needs to be a seamless process to make it easy. The harsh reality is that we watch the Independence Parade. We see a beautiful drone shot of this year. It was at the Usain Bolt Stadium. It was wonderful to see that drone shot. We like to see it on Spring Garden Highway on Crop Over Day. We love to see the hundreds or thousands of people roaming the streets. And we like to see these beautiful shots. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to create that environment to be able to assist these people to use their technology and their various forms of equipment. And drones are one of those that we need to look at.
Okay, as we move down the line in terms of our timing and stuff this morning, there were some films and so on that were shown in the city. We utilized the space there in the city, that new lovely space that we have, Golden Square. Can we see a return to more of that this year, and maybe with some more independent films?
Well, I'm happy to say that we're launching our cinemas in the city very shortly. It's going to be a very dynamic program. We look at Bridgetown and its historic garrison as a World UNESCO Heritage Site. And obviously film is a part of telling our stories and who we are as people. Awesome. And we are definitely want to bring back cinemas in the city, but we are also looking to a wider program. I'm pleased that we can be working closely with the National Culture Foundation to be able to look at the return of the mobile cinemas.
Oh, yeah, I love that as a child.
And how we could get, modernize it, get it back in the communities so people can see the work of our local creators. And that in itself is an incentive for filmmakers and television producers to feel inclined to create more because now they have an audience to show their work to.
But you know what else incentivizes me?
What's that? Money.
So where's the funding coming from to help some of these emerging filmmakers?
Agreed. I think that is the question that many people ask. We recognize that while there needs to be a dedicated fund for the creation of films and other forms of productions, we also recognize that we can't also depend on government to do everything.
Okay.
And that's the harsh reality. We have been aggressively going after grant funding. We've been working with some global partners and even some regional partners. We are about to sign a MOU that you'll hear about very shortly. But we also want to work on a dedicated fund, somewhat of a film revolving loan. We know there's one existing with the student revolving loan fund. But how can we do this in tandem with looking at angel investment and startup funding?
Okay.
There are loads of opportunities out there. We just need to take the bull by the horn and see where we can go with that.
And I am sure that you and the other members of your committee will ensure that we do get those opportunities coming
Most definitely.
out. I want to thank you so much for coming. Here's wishing Film in 2024 all the best. And you as well at the helm.
And to you at CBC as well, because you're part of our family as well.
Thank you so much. That's Mr. Jamal Slocum, who is the president of the Barbados Film and Video Association here in Barbados. Morning Barbados will be back after the break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
While you go about your business, we go about our business, and that is gathering the news. Stay up to date at CBC News Barbados on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Get news update on radio.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Now, it was quite an interesting weekend. Yes, it was. Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley announced the reshuffle of her cabinet. And to discuss it with me this morning, I have political scientist Dr. George Bell. Good morning and welcome to you, Dr. Bell, and Happy New Year.
Good morning, Wendy, and Happy New Year to you and to everybody else as well.
Yes. Now, let's talk about this reshuffle because quite a few people were, glued to their TVs, their devices, whatever, to be able to hear all that was happening. And these changes take effect from today. Let's look first at Marsha Cattle. She is back in the cabinet as minister in the Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology.
Well, I think when she left the cabinet, people were surprised, and we don't have the reasons why she did, but her behavior on the backbench certainly suggested that it was not because she was fed up with politics. In fact, she indicated very much that she was in this for the long term, and she was doing sufficient action on the backbench to attract the attention of the leadership of the government. And I believe that this is why they've decided to bring her back in, because there's a propensity and potential here for problems if somebody who is that active remains on the backbench and raises embarrassing political issues at the wrong time.
Okay, got you. Now, Chad Blackman, he is going to be the minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment. They have a return from a posting overseas, which he's been in for a bit, but he's going to be back as of today, I believe.
Well, I knew him from when he was a student on campus, and I remember on one occasion he came into my office and I told him I could see print all over you. And so I think he has been an ambitious person in relation to a political career for some time now. I think he was just looking for a window to go through to demonstrate what he's capable of. And he has done that through the diplomatic route, and apparently quite successfully. And this has suggested to people that here is somebody that they can invest in for political leadership in relation to electoral politics, so that, in other words, to become a parliamentarian. So I believe that the party is invested in Mr. Blackman now as a future politician at the electoral level, comes in through the Senate. So he's given himself time to, register with the people of Barbados and the electorate, and then I believe that you'll find him in the lower house.
Okay. Okay. Then we have Davidson Ishmael, who's been switched into the post of Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Well, I think that looks like a movement of convenience, because they had to make room for Mrs. Cadell for Miss Cadell for one, and he also is would have been a young minister learning the ropes still, and they put him down to a senior minister in a very difficult ministry, so that it is good training ground for him. So I presume that is the reason why he was pushed there.
Okay. And then we have Sandra Husbands, who's now been switched out to the Ministry of Education. But for years, we've had her associated with foreign affairs or foreign trade or business, given that that's, her background.
Well, Sandra is an experienced politician now, and certainly in terms of activity within the Barbados Labour Party. And the Ministry of Education, I think, required some stabilizing because of the fact that it had a rather young minister in political terms, and one that was having a bit of pressure and problems because the ministry has been targeted by certain people and it has been going through some difficult periods. I think that Miss Husbands will help to stabilize it. I think also that the fact that she's been told to be responsible for tertiary level education relieves Ms. McConney to concentrate on the transformation within the other sections of education that she has been identified to do or to carry out. And Ms. Husbands, on the other hand, can concentrate now. And I've heard this story coming back up again about the University of Barbados, so she can concentrate efforts there and therefore split the workload and bring some experience into the ministry to help to stabilize it.
Okay, now those are the ministerial portfolios, but we would have also had changes that are going to be coming to the Senate as well, because we have some overseas postings being taken up by at least one of the senators there, and that would be having Mr. Blackman come into the House to replace Lorenzo Harewood, who's going to be having an overseas posting. But also, too, in these diplomatic postings, Dr. Bell, we see Vic Finance, Sharon Marshall, two former media colleagues, so I'm happy for them. We're also seeing Cleviston Haynes as the ambassador to Ireland, Lorenzo Harewood, Consul General in New York, and Mackie Holder, Deputy High Commissioner to the UK. For you, were there any surprises in these diplomatic postings?
Well, when you get to the level of political appointments in the diplomatic service, it's not so easy other than to know that these people are people that have done work within the party, or they've done something that we don't know about that was valuable to the party and they're being rewarded. So that it is not like a career diplomat or a career foreign service officer working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for years and so on. So these are people that are deliberately selected for political reasons, either to reward them for work done on behalf of the government. Some of them do have skill sets that can be useful when put in specific areas. I think like Cleviston Haynes in relation to Ireland, you might need somebody like that. Mackie Holder is a very experienced political activist for the Barbados Labour Party. But some people, other people might be more to say, give them a reward for services rendered.
Understood, understood. Now, in terms of the ambassador to Ireland, you said you think that Mr. Haynes would be a good fit there. You mean in terms of our trade with Ireland and the on the international scene, perhaps? That's how you see it?
There's a suggestion that Ireland is a good model for Barbados in terms of, it is an island economy, and it has shown growth in difficult circumstances, lacking in basic resources, and being creative in its engagement with its environment. And I think there is some indication that Mr. Haynes had some interest in that type of activity in relation to Ireland. I would need to have that confirmed, but I believe that he is being sent there specially because of the linkage at that level, and it is a useful place for Barbados to link to at this moment, because it can be very helpful as a model for our own struggles with our international economic environment.
All right, and finally, we see the return of Reverend Charles Morris to the Senate, replacing one of the young females in Shanika Roberts-Odo.
Yes, well, Mr. Morris is going to bring a strengthening of the voice of the government within the Senate, which I think is needed, because we have some young, bright but young girls in there, really, and forgive me for calling them girls, who have to carry a lot of the burden of debate and so on. He brings a level of maturity and gravitas, I suppose, to the situation in the Senate, and I believe he will improve the government's capacity to defend its interests at that level.
Okay. Well, we look forward to that spirited debate, because we all know how Reverend Morris can be. So we'll just have to wait and see how things are going. I want to thank you for joining me this morning, Miss Dr. Bell. As usual, always a good source of information and lots to watch out for as we analyze what will be happening going forward. Have a pleasant day, and thanks for joining us here on Morning Barbados.
Same to you, Wendy. Always glad to see you.
Yes, always a pleasure to see you too. I want to thank Dr. Bell for joining me here to talk about those new changes within the cabinet reshuffle. Now, to look out for tomorrow morning, it's going to be Tuesday, and we will be getting back to our conversations on CARICOM with Ambassador David Comichon. So here's looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, up, bright, sunny. It's a new day. Start it well. Start it with Morning Barbados. I'm Wendy Burke.